Ottawa today released Canada's new immigration targets, and the government is pulling out all the stops to make up for lost ground. This spring, Immigration Minister Marco Mendicino announced that Ottawa was boosting Canada's immigration levels to accept 1 million new immigrants over 3 years. But that was before coronavirus. The pandemic has closed borders, shut down international travel, and it's crippled economies, all of which has meant that Ottawa has not met this year's immigration targets. Today, Minister Mendicino announced his department will make up this year's shortfall by boosting targets by about 50,000 immigrants a year. I'm joined now by Immigration and Citizenship Minister Marco Mendicino. Minister, thanks for taking the time.
Nice to see you, Martin.
Okay, well, let's go over this. I mean, obviously, a lot of people shake their heads when they conceive of an immigration system continuing to work during a pandemic. How short is the shortfall for this year? We were supposed to have something like, 341,000 immigrants this year. I've seen one estimate that it might be as low as 200,000 because of all of the conditions.
Well, in spite of the fact that we actually have a very strong record in meeting our annual immigration targets, this year's been different, and that will come as no surprise to your viewers, Martin. There have been disruptions to our immigration system, but we're ramping back up now by adding resources, by leveraging technology, and by being as flexible with our policies as we can be. And that's why I'm confident about achieving the targets under this new plan, which we just tabled this morning for 2021. And it's so important because immigration has historically been a great driver of our economic strength and will continue to be going forward. And that has been particularly true over the last several months during the pandemic.
Okay, I just want to get to what's going to be going forward. But I mean, what were the biggest difficulties? I mean, I heard reports of closed offices abroad, closed offices here, having to go digital. Obviously, travel was a major impediment. Does that mean we're going to be less than, say, 200,000, about 140,000 short?
Well, with a once-in-a-century pandemic, our top priority is the health and safety of Canadians. So we did put into place travel restrictions to minimize the movement of people across borders. And yes, of course, we did take steps to ensure that the people that support the immigration system are also quarantining and isolating. But as I said, we're now getting back to business as usual. And not only that, we're even accelerating our ability to make up for lost time. And so that is what you will see in this plan. This plan is going to double down on our strategy to invest in our immigration system by digitally transforming it so that we can attract the best and the brightest. And by the way, Martin, this will be to meet the urgent needs of our economy, including in the healthcare sector, where our frontline workers have been working tirelessly and heroically, and immigrants are there to step up and to do the job to help treat those and to give support to our seniors.
Okay, let's look at that. More than half of the people arriving and getting immigrant status over the next few years will be in the economic categories. So we're talking about entrepreneurs, we're talking about investors, we're talking about people with job skills and people who have received job offers. They're the economic category. But a lot of Canadians would scratch their head and say, well, yeah, but we also have 700,000 Canadians who are without a job compared to before the pandemic, and the economy is running at a significantly reduced pace. Can we integrate that number of economic immigrants?
Yes, we can do both. And we have had Canadians back through the pandemic by ensuring that they have access to the emergency response benefit, to the wage subsidy. And by the way, that emergency wage subsidy is being taken advantage of by many, many businesses. 1 in 3 businesses are owned by an immigrant, and they employ over 250,000 people in Canada. Now, that is the singular most important part of this plan. It is to drive economic growth by growing our population, by attracting the best and the brightest, and we hope to continue doing that by achieving the goals that are set out in the plan that we tabled today.
Now, I mentioned that you're going to make up for the shortfall by ramping up in the next 3 years and almost 50,000 more in at least the next 2 years. There also, though, must have been a backlog of people who have not been able to have their cases processed or not been able to arrive. Do people in the backlog, on the human level, do people in the backlog maintain their priority, and have you asked for more resources to deal with that backlog?
Yes, and of course, as I said, we are adding resources, we are leveraging technology, and we're being as flexible as we can be. But I just want to come back to your earlier question. There is another really important part to this, and that is that immigrants create jobs. They create jobs by owning businesses and by creating opportunities for Canadians to come back to work. And with the supports that we put into place with the pandemic, combined with the plan that we are putting forward today, our focus is on getting Canadians back to work. on strengthening and accelerating our economic recovery, and as well by addressing the long-term demographic challenges that we as a country face. Martin, we are rapidly aging as a workforce, and without immigration, our growth will be sluggish. And don't take it from me. Take it from the Royal Bank of Canada, who pointed out that because of these disruptions, we've seen slower growth. Our plan seeks to turn that corner and to get people to come in a safe and an orderly manner so that they can meet the most acute labor shortages in the most essential parts of our economy to respond to COVID-19.
Okay, I'm going to ask something which is often a difficult subject, but there is internal polling. Even your own department had internal polling showing that in tough times, people tend to be less receptive of the concept of immigration. A lot of people in these very difficult times that we're going to go through, this winter that we're going to go through, are going to look at the numbers and have maybe a negative response to it and say, why are we bringing in all these people? I mean, I know you've made the argument, the economic argument for it, but are you concerned about maybe a different social climate for it?
I'm confident that the vast majority of Canadians believe in immigration, and that's because they can relate to it. They are our relatives, they are our neighbors, our friends, our co-workers. I mean, one of the things that I have been able to see firsthand in welcoming new Canadians to the family of citizenship is just how hard people work. And the decency that I see in people who, once they have achieved that important milestone on their journey to becoming Canadian, is that instinct to give back. And so I believe that immigration not only reflects who we were historically, it reflects who we are today and who we want to be going forward. And that is part of the vision of today's plan.
The last question, and this is on behalf of those applicants who've been already accepted, and this is again a very human level question. You say you're going to deal with the backlog. A lot of immigrant applicants have been accepted abroad, and they see their qualifying period, their documents can expire. Are you taking measures to ensure that people who, because they can't travel, are still going to be in the queue and won't lose their ability to come to Canada?
Yes, those are precisely the types of flexibilities that I've talked about introducing. Again, acknowledging that COVID-19 has disrupted many of our operations. And in the case of those who are abroad, the visa application centers that they would typically be able to go to finalize their process before coming to Canada have been shut down by the host countries from where they're coming. And so we have to work very closely with our partners abroad, and we are finding ways to mitigate against those disruptions. But today's plan is about ensuring that we accelerate our economic recovery. It's about creating jobs. It's about attracting the best and the brightest. And we've seen that lesson learned time and time again throughout our history. And we are going to be able to, I think, continue and to extend that success going forward.
Okay, Minister Mendicino, I want to thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Martin.